What is it about an empire that wields such profound influence, captivating hearts and minds for generations, only to find itself in the grasp of decline? The saga of the Roman Empire is a resounding testament to the indomitable human spirit and a cautionary tale of hubris, ambition, and the intricacies of destiny. It's a story of rise, splendor, and devastating fall, one that continues to fascinate historians and enthusiasts alike. You might be wondering, how did a city-state on the Tiber River expand to command a vast empire that touched Europe, North Africa, and parts of Asia? What was the secret behind its power, and what fateful decisions led to its disintegration? Stick around, and we'll embark on this exhilarating journey together, diving deep into the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. Imagine standing in the bustling forum of ancient Rome, as citizens engage in animated discussions, merchants hawk their wares, and senators debate critical issues of governance. This was the heartbeat of a mighty empire that at its zenith commanded unparalleled power and influence. But how did such a seemingly invincible force come under siege from its own people, enemies, and ultimately fate? By tracing its origins, victories, and failures, we unlock insights that not only illustrate Rome's story but resonate profoundly with the experience of all civilizations. From the legendary founding of Rome in 753 BC to its eventual fall in 476 AD, the empire's journey is marked by extraordinary achievements and dire missteps. It all began with a humble legend, Romulus and Remus, twin brothers raised by a she-wolf, symbolizing the struggle and triumph inherent in the Roman ethos. What if I told you that many empires have similar tales of mythical beginnings, yet few matched Rome's audacity in transforming a small settlement into a world power? This tenacity, woven into the Roman character, set the stage for future greatness. Initially, Rome was a monarchy, a mere city-state ruled by kings. However, the overthrow of the last king, Tarquin the Proud, in 509 BC, marked the turning point towards the establishment of the Roman Republic. This was more than just a shift in governance, it was Rome's declaration of independence from tyranny. The Republic introduced a system of checks and balances, aiming to prevent the concentration of power in a single ruler's hands, a notion that resonates even today. Yet, as you might suspect, even this noble system had its own flaws. It wasn't long before wealth disparities and class struggles crept into the societal fabric. What events would catalyze the Republic's eventual transformation into one of history's most recognized empires? Let's pause to reflect on the military prowess that would become a signature of Roman history. The Roman legions were renowned for their discipline, organizational skills, and innovative strategies. Their success against rival states soon propelled Rome's territorial expansions. Did you know that by 264 BC, Rome had already engaged in 3 Punic Wars against Carthage, a rival power in North Africa? The stakes? Control of the Mediterranean. Each war had its share of shocking twists. One moment, Rome stood at the precipice of defeat, while the next, they emerged victorious, altering the trajectory of history. Picture this, a war elephant charging toward Roman lines, yet somehow, they overcame such daunting odds. It's a thrilling reminder of resilience amid chaos. Surprisingly, it wasn't solely military might that fueled Rome's ascent. It was also a strategic web of alliances and political maneuvering that allowed them to absorb territories and cultures. Think about it, incorporating conquered peoples into the fabric of the empire ensured stability and loyalty. These alliances served a dual purpose. They were not merely tactics but also gestures of diplomacy that forged a diverse identity within a singular entity. Isn't it ironic how Britain's imperial past mirrored this experience, extending its reach worldwide with similar tactics of incorporating local leaders for control? As we advance through the centuries, we witness the rise of notable figures such as Julius Caesar, who redefined what it meant to be a leader. You might be wondering about the infamous crossing of the Rubicon in 49 BC. Was it a bold statement against the Senate or an act of sheer ambition? Caesar's subsequent rise to power starkly illuminated the tensions within the Republic. His declaration of himself as dictator for life reignited fears of tyranny, leading to an astonishing twist: his assassination on the Ides of March in 44 BC. The whispers of betrayal and ambition echo throughout history. How often do we see individuals at the helm of powerful organizations find themselves at odds with the structures they helped build? However, Caesar's death heralded the transition from republic to empire. Here's something you didn't expect: this shift was neither rapid nor straightforward. The power struggle between competing factions led to a series of civil wars, ultimately paving the way for the rise of Augustus. In 27 BC, he proclaimed the beginning of the Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and prosperity that lasted over 2 centuries. Imagine that. A vast empire emerging from conflict to usher in an era defined by economic flourishing, architectural marvels, and cultural achievements. The beauty of Roman architecture was not merely decorative, it symbolized the empire's ideological strength. The construction of the Colosseum, the aqueducts, what do they represent? They showcase Rome's engineering capabilities and its dedication to public life. They remind us of a crucial aspect of Roman policy focusing on the welfare of its citizens. Yet, did you realize that this dedication came at a significant cost? The reliance on slave labor and the immense economic disparity would sow seeds of discontent among the lower classes. How sustainable is an empire built on such foundations? As we dive deeper into this era of relative comfort, we can't ignore the ideological conquests that transcended military might. The spread of Roman law provided a framework that influenced numerous legal systems across the globe. Consider this: concepts of justice, rights, and governance that still manage the lives of billions today can be traced back to Rome. Yet, was this intellectual legacy enough to combat the brewing discontent amongst its people? Moving through the 3rd century AD, we encounter a troubling transformation. The Roman Empire stretched itself too thin. Under pressure from external invaders like the Goths, Vandals, and eventual threats from the Persians, the empire found itself cornered. Did you know that in a remarkably brief period, the empire experienced a phenomenon historians call the crisis of the 3rd century? The once cohesive entity fractured, beset by economic turmoil, military defeats, and political chaos. How did a seemingly unstoppable empire wobble from its foundations to a struggling confederation of territories? Amidst the turmoil, profound changes began to materialize. How did Rome's relationship with its citizens evolve? Emperors became increasingly autocratic, and the common man was often marginalized. Interestingly, did you know that as the empire expanded, so did its dependency on mercenaries? These hired soldiers were often foreign and lacked loyalty to Rome. How a powerful empire can restructure its military approach yet risk its integrity is a paradox worth noting. Yet amid the chaos, new ideas began to flourish. One of the most potent influencers during the decline was the rise of Christianity, a faith that initially struggled to find its footing amidst the pagan traditions of Rome. What's astounding is that this new religion, which began as a small sect, would eventually captivate and transform the empire itself. And you might be surprised to hear that the very impulses that drove the decline also ushered in this transformation, leading to the eventual fusion of the empire with Christian doctrine. As we approach the critical juncture of the late 4th century, imagine how the empire tried to hold on to its glories, yet every act of desperation brought more unresolved complications. Internal strife escalated as different factions vied for power, leaving vacant leadership roles that feeble attempts to restore stability could hardly fill. What comes next will leave you speechless. The year 476 AD emerged as a watershed moment, signifying not merely the fall of Rome but the culmination of centuries of complex narratives involving military, politics, culture, and religion. This sweeping tale of ascendancy and decline unveils truths about the very nature of empires. Strength isn't merely measured by land or riches, it thrives on unity, adaptability, and the ability to evolve alongside the very people it governs. can we draw parallels with our world today, where empires of finance or technology share similar trajectories? How often does history repeat itself in the constellations of power and ambition? So here we are at a pivotal point, on the brink of revealing the dramatic concluding elements of this saga, focused on foundational moments that changed the course of an entire civilization. The rise and fall of the Roman Empire is more than just a historical account, it's a reflective journey that raises questions about ambition, morality, and the balance between power and responsibility. But as we take a breath and gather our thoughts, remember, this initial phase is merely the backdrop for the deeper analysis of the events that finally sealed the empire's fate. In Part 2, we will examine the intricacies of those final years, the decisions taken, the responses from the populace, and the cultural transformations that ultimately rendered an empire vulnerable to its own excesses. But for now, keep these questions in mind. What lessons can we draw from this monumental journey? And how will we apply them to the societies we live in today? Stay tuned, because the story is far from over. Prepare to delve deeper into the shadowy corridors of late antiquity, where the Roman Empire teetered on the brink of transformation and decay. Our lens now narrows on the critical decisions and dire circumstances that would ultimately culminate in the collapse of what was once the most formidable power in the ancient world. In doing so, we can better unravel the complexities of leadership, ideology, and societal change that characterized this turbulent chapter in Rome's history. As we venture into the late 4th century and the early 5th century AD, imagine the landscape shifting beneath the feet of both citizens and rulers alike. It was far more than just external threats that endangered the Grand Empire, the internal fissures were becoming dangerously wide. The lower classes, once the backbone of civic pride and labor, began expressing disillusionment as they saw their plight deepening amidst increasing taxation and economic hardship. What initiated this disconnect between the governing elite and the common citizen? After the death of Emperor Aurelius in 180 AD, the once stable succession line crumbled, leading to a succession of rulers marked more by their ambition than by a commitment to Rome's welfare. Enter the crisis of the 3rd century. This period was fraught with civil wars, plague, inflation, and a lack of strong leadership. Imagine regions of the empire declaring independence and the Senate, once the cherished arbiter of power, becoming little more than a shadow puppet in the game of imperial politics. As we examine this disintegration, it's crucial to appreciate the evolving role of class struggles that led to a profound social upheaval. However, the late Roman Empire found itself not only surrendering to external invasions but also grappling with the challenging identity of its vast populace. The empire was a patchwork of ethnicities, languages, and cultures, which had once been considered its strength. But now, the haphazard integration of diverse populations started to inhibit social cohesion. It's astonishing to think that the very policies that aimed to unite Rome, the acceptance, and even exaltation, of diversity, could lead to fragmentation. How does an empire reconcile a multiplicity of backgrounds while maintaining a sense of common identity? Against this backdrop, we can see the emergence of strong regional leaders, some even contended for power against the emperors, and those populist figures gained traction among disillusioned citizens. The authority of the emperor waned. We even witness a trend where soldiers would choose their leaders based on charisma and military prowess rather than noble birthright. Fascinatingly, this brings us to the former provinces, particularly those in the east, becoming crucibles for new ideas and power structures amidst a crumbling authority. Now, let's consider the external pressures from the north, where tribes like the Visigoths and Ostrogoths began their relentless encroachments on Roman territory. These groups, initially seeking refuge from the intimidating might of the Huns, found themselves part of a wave that would ultimately break against the Roman walls. In 410 AD, the Visigoths, under King Alaric, famously sacked Rome, a shocking event that sent a visceral shockwave across the empire. The fall of the Eternal City, the heart of Rome's power, raised grave concerns. If the outer walls could be breached, then what hope remained for the empire? Amidst this crisis, the ideological transformation of the Roman social fabric was equally gripping. The rise of Christianity cannot be overstated when examining the latter half of the empire's decline. What began as a fledgling movement attracted many followers who yearned for a faith that provided comfort amid chaos and a sense of community. Imagine the fervor of these early Christians as they fought for recognition, even as they faced vehement opposition from traditional pagan institutions. The Edict of Milan in 313 AD, issued by Emperor Constantine, marked a significant turn, legitimizing Christianity within the empire. Has any ideology ever reshaped an empire so profoundly? Although Christianity was a healing balm for many, it triggered conflicts as well. The ideological war between paganism and Christianity mirrored the broader battle for the very soul of an empire that had once prided itself on its ancient gods and traditions. For the ruling class, wrestling with the rise of Christianity revealed a growing tension. Should Rome hold fast to its traditions, or should it adapt to this burgeoning interfaith landscape? The very pillars of authority began to shake. What does it say about a society when its beliefs can no longer unify it? Another compelling development during this tumultuous era was the evolving role of the military in Rome. In earlier days, legions were composed primarily of citizens, a committed group who fought for their homes, families, and the glory of Rome. However, over time, the reliance on mercenaries came to dominate military practices, adding another nerve-wracking layer of vulnerability. With loyalty diluted amid an influx of foreign soldiers, how could the once great military continue to project the authority that had once made the empire fearsome? The effectiveness of Rome's military was in question, leaving it exposed to the very threats it once kept at bay. As we embark on a closer examination of the leadership responses to these crises, we encounter a motley array of emperors. Some tried to restore faded glory, while others sought merely to maintain a grip on power. Perhaps no figure stands more prominently than Theodosius I, who proclaimed Christianity as the official state religion. A bold move, indeed. But echoes of discontent rippled through the empire, as those clinging to pagan practices resisted the new faith's embrace. Theodosius's rule illuminated the stark divide that was shaping Roman society. Could unifying beliefs support an empire on the brink of fragmentation? Even as Theodosius attempted to consolidate power, new challenges loomed in the form of the barbarian tribes and renewed civil strife. The Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD showcased a turning point, with the Roman army suffering a staggering defeat against the Goths. This defeat did not merely signify a loss of battle, it symbolized an escalating crisis of identity and control, emphasizing the erosion of the imperial authority. As the dust settled, the question remained, how would such a defeat reshape Rome's destiny? By the time we reached 395 AD, the trajectory seemed clear. Upon Theodosius's death, the empire was divided into East and West, foreshadowing two distinct destinies. The Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital in Constantinople, thrived for centuries to come, while the Western Empire would struggle and ultimately face its demise. Was this bifurcation destiny or a painful admission of limits? The descent into anarchy became ever more apparent as the 5th century progressed. A series of short-lived emperors emerged in the West, each a puppet of the military factions, while the once admired Senate dwindled into a shell of its former self. The government became unable to maintain public order, taxation bloated, and what remained of the legions protected only the interests of a scant few. With divisions entrenched and a populace growing desperate, one might wonder, how could a structure once so solid devolve into a theater of chaos? Let's turn our attention to the final act, the iconic, often quoted fall of Rome. In 476 AD, Odoacer, a Germanic chieftain, took control and deposed the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus. Although this was a decisive end to an era, it does not signify the end of Roman influence entirely. From the ashes of this collapse emerged new societies and cultural legacies. In fact, many traditions would endure, reshaping the identities of what would become medieval Europe. Yet, Who could we hold accountable for this eventuality? Were the internal rifts too great, or were the external pressures simply insurmountable? Contemplating these questions constitutes an intellectual exercise. Each thread in the fabric of the empire's collapse tells a story of ambition, societal evolution, and perhaps a warning echoing through the ages. As we cycle back through the lessons of this vast narrative, it's clear that the rise and fall of the Roman Empire offer immense reflections on power, leadership, and societal dynamics. The truths contained within this tale resonate across centuries, distilled into stark inquiries. How do empires wield their power? What is the price of ambition? And as new global powers rise, do they heed the lessons of history, or do they march blindly toward their own cycles of ascendancy and decline? In bridging ancient Rome with the modern world, we can see that the challenges of governance, societal unrest, and external threats persist in contemporary societies. No civilization is impervious to the cycles of growth and decay, but each possesses the capacity for renewal and rebirth. The climb of the horizon may be daunting, yet infused with understanding, strength, and the recognition that history is not merely a series of past events but a guiding compass towards the future. In conclusion, as we bid farewell to the narrative woven through centuries of human aspiration, complexity, and conflict, let us carry forward the insights gleaned from the Roman experience. Remember, empires are built on the fragile interplay of power, the dignity of the governed, and an adaptable spirit that allows people to navigate the tides of change. The story doesn't end with Rome, history echoes, and it's our task to listen, reflect, and adapt those lessons to our ever-evolving landscape. Stay vigilant, the ghosts of Rome linger, whispering the dualities of ambition and humility into our collective consciousness, reminding us that in every rise lies the seed of a potential fall, and in every fall, the chance for rebirth.